Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this devotional with Chaplain Dan. I'm Dan Bonner, the chaplain for resident advocacy. What a title. What that means is I'm privileged, as I've said many times before here, I'm privileged to listen to you, to have conversation with you, to hear the good things God is doing with you. Some of the fruits of what God is doing with you are, leading or participating in a special Bible study that's open to everybody in the Australia community. Someone else was excited, wanted to tell me about how when she moved into the Wesleyan at Australia, she just needed something to do. She felt afraid that she wouldn't be useful. And through her church that she found and associated with, she was from out of the city, out of Georgetown, out of Central Texas, didn't have any friends except her adult children who lived in Austin and still do. What can I do? And she found a church, and that church had a ministry, has a ministry, incredibly fruitful ministry, making prayer shawls, knitting prayer shawls for people. I've had occasion on previous Advents, time in preparation for Christmas, to spend a good deal of time in the assisted living community here. And that prayer shawl ministry from that one church, heaven knows how many this person who was telling me about it made. They meet weekly. That's a lot of knitting by a group of motivated, called, fruitful people of God. These women made and gave 47 prayer shawls, warm blankets, handmade, beautiful, to individual residents in our assisted living. And then some of you are involved in the woodworking fellowship, I believe it's called. You've told me with excitement about the beautiful and practical things you make, not just to display, but to put to use for some residents here in our community. And the list goes on and on. Things that you do, residents of Australia, not because you came here steeped in that experience and wanting to do that very same thing that you did back in Oshkosh before you moved here to be close to your children, you know. No. You do fruitful things for others because here your fear of the new and the unknown, you stayed long enough, open enough to God's coming to you. I've heard it too many times from too many of you. I felt called to this work, this ministry, this sharing. I felt called. You're right in the company when you say that, of Zechariah and Elizabeth, described in the first chapter of Luke's Gospel. There are two phrases that I want to lift up today from that first chapter that describe the joyful fruitfulness that was born in Zechariah and Elizabeth from what was originally a frightening, fearful visit from God, voice of God. In the first chapter of this blessed book, the 14th verse, he will be a joy and a delight to you. Yes, he will. And many will rejoice. Yes, they will. The 14th verse. Many will rejoice because of him, his birth, and the joy and delight he is to you. And he will be great in the eyes of the Lord. Those prayer shawls are great in the eyes of the Lord. That group that studies the Old Testament prophets is great in the eyes of the Lord. The list goes on and on. The choirs, the leaders of discussion groups. Oh my goodness, you who come and share with others your gifts, that creates joy for them, and I suspect, I know, for you. The fruits of faith. After we live for a little while, not quite sure what to do, not quite sure how we're going to make it through, not quite sure if this is going to work. Maybe you're there right now as a new resident. Be ready. It was the ministry that Zechariah and Elizabeth's child was given, a fellow named John, who some called the Baptist. Be ready, Luke writes. Be ready because the people will be prepared for the Lord's most special gift by this one, this son of yours, this John the Baptist. His fruitful ministry was to, in a very specific way in this first chapter of Luke, prepare the way of the Lord coming. It's all right there just in the first chapter. If you are getting caught up in Christmas doldrums and downturnedness and even depression, remember, God has a fruitful ministry for you in the days ahead. Keep looking, listening, reading the Word of God, not becoming scholars necessarily, but seeing how God used people just like us. See, I don't believe that the drama that is described in the first chapter of Luke is only and specially unique. I don't believe that Elizabeth and Zachariah's extraordinary gift, a child in old age, is a unique experience. Now, you perhaps don't want to have a child, and I wouldn't name that as the fruit God brings for you. But I do believe I've seen it in you, many of you. God has turned your fear into fruitful faith. And there, my friends, we become instruments of the good and godly. Maybe not with words like the ones I'm using. I don't think that's particularly important. Some don't understand these words, but they would be touched by your gift that God calls from you. This Christmas, this Advent time, be especially on the lookout, because God may be doing amazing things through you. Yes, in our aged existence. Yes, in our fear and trepidation at times. God is not leaving us. He will not forsake us. The fruits of Zachariah and Elizabeth, that son named John, may be, and I suggest must be, an encouragement to us about what God does with us, each one. I'm Chaplain Dan Bonner, and it's such a privilege to have you share the Word of God with me. Just in that first chapter of the Gospel of Luke is such an encouragement to us, I've found. Such an encouragement. If God can do that with two old people who happen to be married without a child, give them a child. If God can do that, that God can use you. Be on the lookout in faith. God bless you. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next days in this devotional time with Chaplain Dan. Have a blessed day.